Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I want to show you my second attempt at painting the new Saurus Warriors for the Seraphon. I already did one video where I ended up with a color scheme that looked like this, which is fine except for the fact that it doesn't match the rest of the color scheme for my Seraphon army at all. Here you can see it next to one of the original Saurus Warriors, which really closely resembles the rest of the army, and it just doesn't really fit in. So I wanted something that would fit in a little bit better while at the same time still being a little bit new and fresh. So I started off with a model that's been primed using the White Scar primer, and then I painted it with the Croxigore Scales contrast paint. And once that was dry, I gave it a quick dry brush using white. I wanted to do something sort of slap chop light-ish, where I started off with a contrast color like I did the last time with the first Seraphon Warrior, but then started off with a color that more closely matches the color scheme that I'm actually going for. So first the Croxigore Scales, then the white, and then I am here painting with Athematic Blue, one of the other contrast paints, a very lovely light turquoise color that I really like. And that is the color Athematic Blue that I mostly used on the original Warriors, and so I thought this would perhaps make them a little bit more of a closer match, and while at the same time just picking out a little bit more details because I did the sort of slap chop-ish thing. Then for the scales I went for Talazar Blue, also a contrast paint, and my thought was that I could do some scales that would match again the color scheme a little bit more closely and also the skin color a little bit, and that might look really nice. So after the Talazar Blue was dry, I took some blue color, light blue color, and this is called Blaster Blue. It's a fluorescent color from Huge Miniatures, and I used that to do sort of an edge highlight at the top of the scales. Then I mixed in a little bit of white and did the whole thing once more, and just a little bit less than the original highlight. Then for the spikes in the middle, I decided I wanted them to be sort of a naturalistic bone color, so I used some Skeleton Hordes contrast paint. And the reason I went for that was because I wanted something to be a little bit visually different now that the whole dino is more or less just bluish. So I thought it would be nice to have this warm earthen tone in the middle of the whole thing. I then highlighted that using first a little bit of Wraithbone, a color from Citadel, and trying to just hit the edges on the spikes. And as you can see here, I'm not being too careful because I wanted this to be a paint job that I can repeat over and over on at least 20 more Saurus Warriors. So this is not going to be a high-end paint job. I'm going for sort of a nice tabletop quality that I'll be happy with. Then for the shield, I decided I wanted something that was green and pink because I thought that would look really cool. And so first I used the Warp Lightning Green contrast paint, and then I went for another contrast paint. This one is Sigmar Burgundy that I used for the pink. And the new shields are a little bit different than the old ones that were just scales. These are sort of more like graphic design almost, so they look a little bit different, and so I thought I couldn't paint them exactly the same way. That would look a little bit odd. Then I took some Black Legion contrast paint and decided to paint in some more smaller shapes, just because I thought it would be a little bit difficult for me to paint these all in one go if I didn't break up the colors, blocks of colors. So I decided just to go for some nice small shapes like I do on a lot of my other projects. Then I grabbed my fluorescent paint again from Huge Miniatures, and this one is called Pulse Wave Pink, and I used that as an edge highlight all around each pink shape. And I did exactly the same for the green using Gamma Green, also from Huge Miniatures. I really do like their fluorescent paints. There's just something amazing about painting with neon paints. I don't know, it just makes me happy all the time. I love them. Yeah, maybe it's just me that's weird, but yeah, I guess it doesn't hurt anyone if you're just like really into fluorescent paints, right? Then the green was highlighted on the edges using Quantum Green, also a fluorescent paint from Green Stuff World, while the pink was highlighted using a Cyber Pink, also from Huge Miniatures, and lastly a touch of white for the pink. and just a little bit of dab of Starfire Yellow, also a paint from Huge Miniatures for the green. And here you can see the two models side by side, the new one and the old one. And it was kind of cool, but I just felt like the new one was missing something. There is just something that worked a little bit better with the old one somehow. And so I decided perhaps it needed just a little bit of green on the top of the blue scales. Perhaps it was just too blue. Perhaps there wasn't enough color variation. And I did that. And then I thought, you know what? It doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. Perhaps the scales need to be entirely green. So I got out my mood green from Citadel and decided to paint all the scales just a flat green color. I was gonna highlight it, mind you. Then I decided also that both on the shield and on the armor plates here on the legs, that the green color had to go. So I repainted that, I covered it in black. That was just the easiest solution I could come up with, because then I had sort of a canvas to start over. Now that I was redoing so many things, I thought, well, I don't really like the crest on the head, so why not do something different with that as well? At this point, I was actually kind of ready just to give up on the whole thing and throw it in, an ultrasonic cleaner and just strip it and try again. But then I thought, okay, well, I mean, I spent a lot of time on this. Why not just keep going and see what happens, right? I can always strip it later if I hate it. So I took some Mephiston red and I put that on the armor plates on the leg and also on the shield. And then I started highlighting the green scales again using the Quantum Green from Huge Miniatures, which felt a little bit silly because I had already done a whole bunch of edge highlighting on these scales. But now I'd covered them entirely in green, so now I had to redo the whole thing. Oh well, the joy of painting and trying new stuff, I suppose. Then for the crest on the head, I decided to go with a quick wet blend using 3 contrast paints, Warp Lightning, Yanden Yellow, and Blood Angels Red. And the reason for it was that I wanted a little bit more red in the color scheme, which is also why I went for red on the armor plate, on the leg, and on the shield, because there is a little bit more reddish tones going on in the older color scheme, and I thought perhaps that's why I like that one better. So perhaps what I really need is a little bit more color variation and particularly a little bit more red. And while I did this, I thought this is just horrible. I had by now so many coats of paint on it. It looked thick and gloppy and you couldn't really see the texture underneath, and I was just not happy with it. But I decided to keep going anyway and see where I would end up. So I took some Radar Red from Huge Miniatures and I did the edge highlight, as you can see here on the armor plate, and I did the same thing on the shield. I'm not going to show you twice me doing the exact same thing. Then I highlighted that using Laser Orange. I've said it before on this channel, the Laser Orange is a very vibrant orange color. It just doesn't really show up well on camera, unfortunately, but it is actually really vibrant and looks really cool. And the same actually goes for the Radar Red. It is also much more vibrant in real life. Then I just gave a touch of the Starfire Yellow, also a fluorescent paint from Huge Miniatures, as the final highlight. I used the same color, the Starfire Yellow, on the scales just as the sort of very extreme neon highlight, just to sort of, both because I like it, I like extreme highlights, and to try and tie it all together with the red and orange and then the green on the scales. I then started working on the head, and because I had covered it in so many layers of paint at this point, it was really difficult to see the sort of texture of the original sculpt, and so I decided to repaint the scaly texture, just because I thought it would look weird if it was just one flat piece of plastic with no texture on it. That would just look weird compared to the rest of the model. So I took some Wildwood, also a contrast paint, and just not quite randomly, but trying to see if I could find the texture underneath the paint and where I couldn't, just doing something that I thought would make a little bit of sense at least. Then the red part was highlighted first using the radar red, like the armor plate on the leg. Then I took some flash sketch yellow and ordinary paint from Citadel to highlight the yellow with. And then I grabbed some mood green for the first layer of highlight on the green part of the head. And then it was just a question of highlighting it using the colors I have already used. The laser orange and yellow, starfire yellow for the red, a bit of wraithbone for the yellow, and some of the quantum green and starfire yellow for the green on the head as well. I thought the whole thing looked a little bit too light or didn't have enough contrast, so I went back over it with the wildwood and just added a little bit more. Then for the shield, I had, as I said, redrawn it originally from the pink and green to pink and red, and now I regretted that a little bit because I thought it actually needed a little bit of green anyways. So I redid some of the designs using green in exactly the same way as I did the first time around. So this was a lot of, well, it was a little bit silly. It was quite a bit of extra work, but it was just, you know, a question of going back and forth and finding out what I liked and what I didn't like. And so that ended up having to just be what I had to do. And here you can see the final result. And this is much different from what I originally intended when I started out. But as you can see it here next to the original Saurus Warrior, I actually think it works pretty well. I think it has something new to bring to my army, while at the same time being in line with the original color scheme and not something that will stand out and look really, really off or weird on the tabletop, because I intend to play a whole bunch of games with my Seraphon army and I want them to look nice and sharp on the tabletop. And all sort of fit together. And of course, as I painted them using so many fluorescent paints, here you can see them here you can see it under a UV light. And this is sort of my favorite thing of the whole process. When I get to do that, that's just fun. So anyway, this is supposed to be a color scheme, as I said, that will match the original color schemes that I have, while also being a little bit new and exciting for me to paint. While at the same time not taking ages to paint. This particular model actually turned out to take a long time to paint because I had to go back and forth so many times. But I think now that I know what I want to do and what the end result is going to be and what colors I want to use, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal going forward. I think it'll be... I mean, it'll definitely take some time with the edge highlighting, especially on the shield and stuff. But I don't think it's something that is going to take me like 5 or 10 hours per model or anything like that. I think it'll be completely doable. And I think while it will not win any awards, it will definitely look nice on a tabletop, at least to my eyes. And I really look forward to having a whole bunch of these guys to play with. It's going to be super fun. I just love the Seraphon and I'm so excited for the new models. So yeah, this was my little bit of a going back and forth messy painting video. I hope you still found a little bit of inspiration or perhaps took away some ideas or something anyways. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions or comments or suggestions. As always, I really appreciate it if you leave a like or if you comment or even subscribe to the channel. And also, of course, remember that you can follow me as Dyson Demons over on Twitter and Instagram, where you can stay up to date on my painting projects. So thank you so much for watching this one, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!